Hi, I'm Patrick Jaguar with Cosmic Alchemist Astrology. Thanks very much for tuning in. Thanks for watching this video. And thanks to everybody who watches this channel and likes and subscribes and shares and does all that good stuff. It's very helpful for the channel. I find it very encouraging and I appreciate you. So, let's talk about January 2023. And actually, before I do that, the public service announcement. Highly recommend blue light glasses. I'm not endorsing a brand. I don't do that kind of thing. Get yourself some of these because this whole LED, light bulb revolution, it's not good. It's all about hormone disruption, I think. All your pituitary, pineal hormones. It's like the plant-based diet. It's all about hormone disruption. People less healthy, people less fertile. So, yeah, get yourself some of these. I've got 2 ring lights beaming at me, and I don't really like what it does to my eyes. And even, when I shut my eyes, the one in front of me is still burned on my retina. I can see a ring of light, even with these glasses on, but these definitely help. So, anyway, check those out. You can get a good pair for like 25 bucks. I think is what I paid for these. All right. So enough about blue light glasses. This is the January 2023 monthly video. So happy New Year. It's, what the hell is it, the 8th today. I've had so much going on. I've been thinking about this channel, but I haven't gotten to it, but here I am. So this is, I think, a little excitement this month. And the most prominent thing in this whole month is that Saturn, the Lord of the 3D world, Saturn gets a bad name sometimes because Saturn is tough. Saturn is the enforcer of the law within the solar system, within our little local cosmos. So Saturn is almost like a subcontractor hired by our souls to enforce our life path. That's Saturn's whole job. So the law that Saturn is enforcing is really yours. It's not the law of the Lord in heaven. It's not that kind of shit where, you're basically being punished for not, following a set of commandments, or you haven't read the book club's book well enough, and you don't know all the little legalistic clauses and, finer points. No, it's not about that. What Saturn does, Saturn keeps you authentic. Saturn makes sure that you are, maybe not at all times, because you got to have a cheat day here and there. You got to eat some junk food. You got to dick around a little bit, take some sidetracks, explore things. But what Saturn does is Saturn keeps us authentic, keeps us on our life path, our individual life paths, and keeps us on them enough so that we don't have setbacks in life. Now, major setbacks in life they're really about, when things blow up in our face, when we feel like we had a really good idea, that we're really onto something, and the things blow up. It means we were pursuing something that, we truly didn't want, or something that would detract, that would take away from our evolution, from the evolution of our soul in the long run. So that's Saturn's job. Saturn keeps us honest, and Saturn says, you know what? You're not being the real you. You're off on some kind of tangent. I got to teach you a little lesson to get you back on track. So it's not about punishment. It's not about crime and punishment. That's a whole Abrahamic, Jewish, Christian, Islamic thing. The whole, crime and punishment in the universe. It's not about that. It's about whether you are yourself, whether you're being yourself or you're not. That's the only real sin, is not being your real authentic self. And all the other things, that we refer to as sins, they all stem from that. And people get freaked out when they say, well, what if someone's genuine desire is to be a rapist and a bank robber and a serial killer, all in one? And it's like, well, none of those are genuine soul desires. Those are just reactions to fear. Those aren't soul desires. Those don't count. So that whole argument is completely invalid. So yeah, all the things that we consider sins, they just come from people not being their real selves. So that's Saturn's job. So anyway, the point of that whole tangent, Saturn's coming to Aquarius. So this is going to kind of give humanity a bit of a shot in the ass. Aquarius is one of the home signs of Saturn. Capricorn is the other one. So Capricorn is the yang, it's more severe. Aquarius is the yin. So it's two signs right in a row, both ruled by Saturn, but very different. So Capricorn, the more severe one, Capricorn is about bending your knee to a figure of authority. It's about doing what you're told. It's about having to fulfill obligations at the expense of giving yourself what you need and what you want. And, it's the complementary opposite to freedom. Cancer and Leo deal with freedom. So opposite signs to Capricorn and Aquarius. So yeah, Capricorn's very severe. Capricorn is about control, structures, figures of authority, and officials, people like that. Institutions. Capricorn is institutions all day long, and hierarchy and authority. So, Capricorn is a sign of the government ministers. Aquarius, it does deal with we the people. It deals with the masses. But then, on the other hand, it does deal with aristocracies. So there are different types of aristocracies in the world. So usually when you say aristocracies, people think of, medieval barons and countesses and all that shit, or they think about, the peerage, the aristocrats in England or in, Sweden, Germany, Netherlands, where they still have these aristocrats. Well, that's one way to look at it. But then the aristocrats are also these clowns in these NGOs, like Bill Gates, George Soros, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, aristocrats of the self-appointed nature, self-appointed variety, excuse me. So that's another way to look at it, but it does deal with we the people. Aquarius, the glyph, well, not the glyph, but the depiction of it, the graphical depiction of it, is a human carrying a pitcher of water. So it's a human form. And it's also sometimes depicted as an angel, even in the the first page of the old King James Bible. It has the 4 cardinal signs of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. So, Aquarius is the angel. So, yeah, and, when they describe like the Sphinx, and there's different creatures they describe in the Bible, where they talk about bulls, lions, eagles, and a man or an angel. They're talking about the 4 cardinal signs. So yeah, Scorpio has the human form, whether it's Aquarius, the water bearer, or you're talking about, the angelic form. So, in the ancient astrology, in a very traditional astrology, the signs that have human forms, so we're talking Gemini, what is it? Gemini, Virgo, and Aquarius with the human forms, they tend to be challenging, but this is not a bad thing. So, getting closer to the point, I'm a little tangential today, but what else is new? So these signs that have these symbols using human forms, they're challenging, but the challenge is a good thing, because struggling, fighting is a hell of a lot better than anticipating. And for the past almost 3 years, we've had Saturn's been, for lack of a better term, wreaking havoc in Capricorn. Saturn hasn't been wreaking havoc, hasn't been antagonizing us. Saturn has just been basically revealing, along with Pluto. Pluto's going to have a long transit, in sidereal through Capricorn. Saturn has just been showing us what figures of authority and governments and big institutions are all about. So this stuff's always been going on, but we were in denial or we just plain didn't know about it. So Saturn, because Saturn is like a lord of justice. So Saturn has been showing us truth that's not very comfortable, but we have to see it, and we don't have much of a choice. So that's that. So we have been in anticipation land for a long time because there are all these ifs, right? So we had, well, for me, the long-awaited, and for a lot of people who are following the astrology, the long-awaited needlecraft and the lockdowns. We had that whole thing, and there are all these ifs or what ifs, and like, oh, what if they go door to door with the needlecraft and and just bust my door down and make me do it? That was never going to happen. It's not going to happen, but it was a big what if. And part and parcel to the lockdowns and the needlecraft, it's the whole digital society with the social credit score and the central bank digital currencies and all that kind of thing. A lot of what ifs there, a lot of unpleasant what ifs to think about, I got to be honest. But we're at the end. We have days left in this basically torturous anticipation period. And the funny thing about that, when I say a torturous anticipation period, that's been almost 3 years long, again, since Capricorn, since Saturn rolled into Capricorn. So all through 2020, whenever I had to write the date on a document, or I'm just making notes in my own notebook, or I'm doing like a voice recording, if I'm recording what I see in dreams or CE5s or something, I kept writing the date as 2020. I did that all through 2021, all through 2022, and I think that's interesting in a very subconscious way. I almost said it's very Freudian, but I don't know. I don't like Freud. Freud shouldn't dominate the subconscious dimension. It was very telling. It was very subconscious that I kept writing the date as 2020, 2 years after that year was over. So it's like 2020 never ended. We've been in this limbo. We've been in this anticipation land. So we're in 2023. It's a new start. It's a new, as far as, the standard calendar goes, the January to December calendar goes, it's a new cycle. So, there are many cycles in the year. So we're in this new cycle. And the Saturn in Aquarius, it reinforces something I'm always talking about. And it's that no Messiah is coming. A lot of us have been raised in churches to believe that, the Messiah is coming any day now, coming any day. Well, the Messiah is not coming any day now. It's not going to happen. But the Messiah is here. But the Messiah is here already. Well, who is it? Some people might be like, well, who is it? Is it Prince Harry? Is it JFK Jr.? Is it 107? Is it Donald Trump? Is it Ron DeSantis? No, it's you. You're the Messiah. That's how it is. This whole this force that we call God, I think of it as oversouls. Something in the ninth dimension or some such thing. A whole different perceptual world. it specializes, it branches off, it trickles down. And it trickles down into the souls of, I think, humans, animals, all that kind of thing. Plants, probably. So, yeah, you are a highly specialized branch of this force that people call God, for lack of a better term. So because of this, it's like, well, everything's God, and so are you. And so there's no Messiah coming that's more divine than you. It's like nothing is more divine than you. Even the souls of Hitler and Stalin and Dr. Fauci and whoever the hell, they're all as divine as yours. But some people realize it and see it and act on it more than others. That's the difference. So there's no being more divine than you that's coming to save you. Now, we're going to start to understand the Saturn Aquarius. It's going to be a big deal for this. Later in the year, we're going to have a Jupiter in Aries. Jupiter's optimism and expansion and gifts and good fortune. It comes into Aries, which is our heads, which is leading forward. Freedom's going to go boom. So this is a good thing. It's better. It feels a hell of a lot better to fight and to struggle than it does to anticipate. So that's the big deal here. That's a big thing to be happy about, and we will be happy about it. Now, another thing about this year, it's like welcome to 1775. So now you'll notice if you watch my videos, I'm very oriented towards America, towards the United States of America. I was born here. But the American Revolution really spread across the world, and a new American Revolution is coming next year, 2024, and it will spread across the world. With this whole globalist corporate manipulator class, America's the jewel in the crown of the world. Because whatever happens to America happens to the world. They're not going to win. They know it. Klaus Schwab is even saying that the World Economic Forum's goals are not going to be met. He's already said it, but it's not as exciting. People don't get as excited to acknowledge that. And you got to dig a little bit to see it, but he's already said it. These people will make a mess. I think the rest of this decade into the early 2030s will be the last push of communism, of corporate communism. Communism has always been corporate. It's never been about the working classes rising up, because the upper classes have always contributed shitloads of money and intellectuals who went to Ivy League schools to these causes. So it's always been corporate. Really, when the news talks about right-wing extremists, they're talking about the working class, because the leaders of every left-wing party, they're from the upper middle class, or they're very upper class people. And they have the odd, what the hell is that guy? Fetterman. That guy he's basically been lobotomized. What was he, lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania? Now he's a senator. You've got the odd, slob of a Fetterman in there, but complete useful idiots. And a thing to take into careful consideration with history, revolutions always eat their children, especially when they're false revolutions. Revolutions always have some kind of big interest and big business behind them, because basically a faction of very wealthy people always feel like they're getting shafted by people who are more wealthy than them. So they create a new system of government, which can really benefit, just regular people who go to work every day like you and I. So, this was the case in the American Revolution. Basically people who business owners, big business owners in America who they felt like they could expand more and do better business, but the British Empire was taxing the hell out of them and limiting what they could do. So they got together and they said, let's start our own government. This happened in France. The French Revolution was not some egalitarian, people's movement. It's always big business behind you saying, I don't care. Soviet Union had big business behind it. It was sponsored the whole time by Wall Street and by the banks of London. And even, the National Socialist movement in Germany, aka the Nazis, same thing. Some of these revolutions are downright totalitarian, and then some of them give breathing room for ordinary people. And I put the American Revolution in that category. None of those people were saints, but they're never saints. So yeah, we're back in 1775 here. We are reliving, because, time is circular, but it also moves forward. So time, to me, kind of has a bit of a spiral sort of a thing going on. It's cyclical, but it's moving forward. So 1775, what the hell was up at 1775? Well, look at it in relation to the following year. 1776, that was when the Declaration of Independence was signed in Independence Hall in Philadelphia. And that was the official declaration that the United States of America was a union of 13 independent countries. So here in the United States of America, we're 50 independent countries, not supposed to be bossed around by a bunch of assholes and their lobbyists in Washington, D.C. We're not one country, we're 50 countries. We choose to work together. So that's when that all started. That was 1776. 1775, that was the first rumblings when people started to take action. So you had the first battles of the Revolution. You had Bunker Hill. It's all in Massachusetts. You had Lexington and Concord. And you had Bunker Hill. So that was really where it flashed off here in America. And then even a year before that, 2022 was like 1774. And so that was the Boston Tea Party. So things are rolling. 1774, it was like, what the fuck's going to happen here? It's like, we're getting taxed by these assholes. They're screwing with us financially. They're limiting our money supply. We can't be productive, business-wise. 1774 was a huge anticipation. 1775 came, people started doing shit and getting going. And then 1776, of course, the official start of the declared independence. So we're back in 1775, first battles. So this new American Revolution, and even this also starting in 2024, like, American Revolution 2.0, is American Civil War 2.0. I don't see that as, they're not bloodbaths. There's going to be like troops moving around probably, because you just have to, troops are what back up your authority. Every system of government is backed up by people with guns. So yeah, there'll be troops moving around. There'll be some regional wars, but I don't see the big bloodbath. This war is spiritual, it's mental. But people are going to start taking action. And the commonality between the first American Revolution and now is the formation of parallel societies. So basically in 1776, the founding fathers in the First Continental Congress said, you know what, we're starting a parallel society. Fuck you, British Empire. So that is what people are starting to do, and that's what we need to do more of, is just, it's like Eamon de Valera, who was the first president of Ireland. He said, we'll defeat the British Empire by ignoring it. So that's what you have to do. So, the protests, totally useless. You're playing the establishment's game. You go to the mall in Washington, D.C., and you march on the mall, and, people make these speeches and blah, blah, blah. Well, you're playing the establishment's game. You know what I mean? There's a guy, channel I love, he's an Irishman, Thomas Sheridan. He talked about, Use the analogy of piranhas, right? So it's like we're at this river we need to cross in order to get to the future. The river's full of piranhas, and he was saying, well, you're going to offer the piranhas tofu in hopes that they'll become vegetarians and they'll just let you swim the river without devouring you, or are you going to build a raft? Because they won't understand what to do with the raft. So you have to go around these fuckers, and it's not hard to go around them. You just need to use your imagination. It's like with with YouTube and Instagram and all this social media. So the AI is scanning for all these words, like Ovid K and Axination Ve and Axine Ve and what else? What's the other? I obey Epinway, and there's all these words that it's scanning for, but you change them a little bit, or you call it needlecraft, something like that. It's not picking it up. So the AI is only as smart as the assholes who programmed it, and the assholes who programmed it, they're so unimaginative, and they're such control freaks, and they don't understand real people. I mean, they're real people, but they're not real people. They're just these like spoiled pansy, Silicon Valley people who, the place they work has a fucking sushi chef. You know what I mean? It's like nobody lives like that. These companies like Google and all this shit, they got the sushi chef working there and, free acupuncture and all this shit. And it's like nobody else lives like that. So these people think that that's what real life is like. So they have no idea. And this is why they call working class people right-wing extremists. They're not actually talking about the people in positions of authority, like the actual players. When they say right-wing extremists, they're talking about the working class who just wants to be left alone, wants to have their freedom. But then the useful idiots who follow the left-wing parties, they have no idea. Because a lot of them are working class, and and the vast majority of them have never been oppressed by any type of right-wing extremist. They're just jumping on a bandwagon and virtue signaling and feeling like fucking heroes because they turn their TV to the correct channel and they watch hours of television every day. But, starting in the 1950s, that's what they taught American boys and girls. You can be a hero just by watching the television religiously your entire life in cheerleading for the correct factions on those TV shows. So, yeah, that's where, a lot of people are at. So, but yeah, this whole thing about right-wing extremists, they're just talking about working class people. And these upper class and upper middle class people who run these left-wing movements, they fucking hate the working class. They pretend to be their champions, but they hate them. They really do. They do nothing for them. They just create hysteria and they roll out victims for people to feel bad about and for people to, want to coddle, basically. So, yeah. Yes, the big thing this month, Saturn in Aquarius. So we're going to understand more about our human rights. Some people don't even understand that, mandatory needlecraft, that's against your human rights, where they threaten to fire you from your job. Things like that. Having all your telecommunications tapped, that's unethical. People they're just like, I have nothing to hide. Well, people are going to be more aware of what their human rights are, what their freedoms are. They're going to be aware that, wow, they're really trying to take this stuff away from us. So there's a slow wake up that's going to be more apparent. I'm already hearing stories of, from professions like nursing and teaching about people within those professions are outraged and they're saying to their colleagues, we got fooled about this whole needlecraft thing. And these are people who, who are going along with the narrative, the entire time. So, yeah. So freedom's waking up, but beware of the conformity, because the other side of Aquarius, it's not just freedom and justice and equality and all that stuff. It's conformity. It's a hive mind. And people are like, oh, we're so happy. Oh, we're so diverse. Oh, and they're all doing the same thing, and they all have the same opinion about everything. So beware the conformity. Just because someone belongs to the same, I hate that, belonging to groups. I don't belong to any groups. Just because somebody identifies with the same groups that you do, don't just write them off as, being awake or on your side, really take a close look. Yeah, new attempted power grabs. That's coming, but the power grabs are going to be even more obvious, and they're going to fail more and more. It's like Klaus Schwab said, he's even admitted, the goals of this World Economic Forum are not going to be met. They've already admitted it, but they're trying to get as much as they want. New friendships, new groups, new associations getting started. Now, another thing, when I keep saying fighting and struggling is better than anticipation, when you're cornered, you realize that you have to fight, and there's no way out of fighting. And, I think my upbringing, and my background during these times. I grew up in Massachusetts. Definitely, ethnic kind of families. I'm a second generation American on one side. Probably, I don't know, maybe a third on the other, maybe a fourth. Still pretty new. A lot of people in this country, the family's been here for a dozen or more generations. They have no memory of an old country or a culture other than, like white bread American. So in those more ethnic cultures, there's more confrontation, and people fucking argue and they fight with each other, and it doesn't mean they don't love each other, but that's just how it goes. That's the Northeast. Anyone in this country from any other region will tell you that northern East Coasters, they seem kind of like edgy and kind of grumpy and combative. Well, it's like they're just very direct. The rest of the country is very non-confrontational, and it's like, it's like the whole bless your heart culture. It's very passive aggressive, and people just won't say what they're pissed off about and get it off their chest. So I'm thankful for my upbringing, because it's something I can just do. So, but yeah, the point is like when you're cornered, you have to fight. Me, I start pushing back way before I get to the corner, but not everybody is from that kind of a culture and a background. So, but pretty much everybody, unless they have no ability to express any kind of anger, when they get pushed into a corner, they realize they have to fight, and they fight back. And this is like with dealing with animals, even if you're not hunting, just with dealing with wild animals, you never corner something, because something much smaller than you can seriously fuck you up and even kill you, like a raccoon. It's not very big, but it moves its body without human inhibition. So it'll jump off the ground at your face, and it's got claws flying and teeth snapping, and it's like, that could take your eye out pretty damn easily, maybe both. On a bad day, it might even, hit your jugular, your carotid. So you never corner anything. It's like when you're working with horses. Horses are like, I don't know, they're like giant rodents. Like, they're afraid everything's going to eat them, even though they're like 1,200 pounds. But it's like, you never corner them, because they'll run your ass over if they're scared enough. They don't want to do that. They don't like to do that, but they will if they're scared enough. So you never corner anything. So we're going to feel like we're getting cornered here. And a lot of us already feel that way, but the ones who've been oblivious, they're going to increasingly start feeling cornered. They're going to fight back. And that's going to be a fatal mistake of the whole, the powers that be. It's gonna be too late when they realize they fucked up. I think they're realizing they fucked up and it's already too late. But they're really gonna know it. Yeah, you have to fight when you're cornered. So the good thing here, another layer of just like the humdrum boredom that we've lived in for the last 75 years, getting stripped away. So, especially, more conservative people where they're like, I don't, since the days of Richard Nixon, in the late 60s, early 70s, I don't protest like one of those hippie dirtbag socialists. It's like, well, you're gonna have to fight back. The days of your, being genteel and just, taking it up the butt, like that's over. You're gonna have to fight back. So yeah, and what's gonna come with that is more meaning in life and more responsibility. So yeah, this is good. Aquarius is definitely softer than Capricorn. Capricorn's yang. Thought is more yang, substance, material world is more yin. So with the 3 years of Saturn in Capricorn, we had all these potentialities for the future. All these what ifs, what may happen to us, what they may do to us. And now we're going to start taking action. Little by little. Because again, it's 1775. April 1775 is when it got hot. First battles. What was the other thing I want to talk about? Oh yeah. So some more interesting things here. I was like, okay, when was the last time Saturn came to this place? So it was in late 1993, early 1994. January 1994, Saturn was a little farther along. So Saturn was in about 4 degrees of Aquarius sidereally. So yeah, 1994, January, Northridge earthquake. So Northridge, that's like, the northwest part of Los Angeles. So it's like San Fernando Valley, getting up that way. That was the earthquake that brought down sections of I-10 in Los Angeles County. It just, the causeways, the overpasses, sections just dropped off the supports. So that's interesting, and then when you look further into it, you've got, I'm not saying it's going to happen this month, but there's a few things that suggest within the next year. So Saturn in the early degrees of Aquarius. Now Pluto right now, 3 degrees of Capricorn sidereally. That's right on top of where the sun was during that Northridge earthquake. And then March 2011, you had the Fukushima quake and tsunami. And that occurred when Jupiter was, 12 degrees of Pisces sidereally. So it's at 9 degrees now. So matter of months from that 12 degree mark. And that was in the constellation of Phorcus or Phorcys, who was the husband of Ceto, and they were the parents of like the sea monsters in the Greek mythology, in the Gorgons, including Medusa. So it's interesting that that pressure wave came out of the depths of the ocean back in 2011 and caused that Fukushima tsunami. When it was in Jupiter, was in that constellation, which is symbolized by the father of these Gorgons and these sea monsters. So it's things coming out of the unconscious, to reveal themselves. So yeah, pretty interesting. I think there was a smaller earthquake in Northern California. Maybe like a 3 point something. I don't think any more than 4. Significant, but not huge. A disruptive earthquake in, say, Silicon Valley would be very helpful right now. Especially, all this shit like these companies like Neuralink, Elon Musk, where they had these disastrous trials where they're putting this chip into the brains of monkeys so they can connect to computers. Disastrous trials. And they're like, oh, we're gonna roll to human testing now. So it's like, well, what does that sound like? It's like needlecraft all over again. So they could use a disruption, and if they get it, that'd be a very powerful sign. One in China, that'd be a powerful sign too. But Silicon Valley is they're like the leading edge of all this like totalitarianism, especially this like conformist, kind of dark side of Age of Aquarius, like scientific tyranny stuff. So wouldn't be surprised if there's a big earthquake. California is just prone to them, and it might be one of these like 100-year earthquakes, because San Francisco was destroyed once. I think it was 1906. That's really, San Francisco is really a center and like a mecca of just like straight up perversion. So, yeah, it could be interesting. All right. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I want to say about Saturn. If you want to look at Saturn in tropical, well, it's just going to 24 degrees of Aquarius, So it's not making a big transition. But if you look at it tropically, the earthquake and all that stuff, it happened when Saturn was in those later degrees of Aquarius. So, kind of ho-hum in the tropical. All right. So let's talk about a few days here and we'll wrap this up. Probably going over an hour at this rate, but so be it. All right. So January 6th, a couple of days ago, we had that full moon, sidereal 22 Gemini, tropical 16 Cancer. So the full moon, it was constellation of Artemis in sidereal and then Zeus tropical. So Artemis, it is a Greek goddess, and she existed in 3 levels. On Earth, she was let me see, in the underworld it was Persephone, goddess of the underworld, and then in the heavens it was Diana, the moon goddess, and on Earth it's like Hecate. So there's this thing with Artemis where it's all about just like there's this top down, bottom up awareness, in all 3 of these worlds. Gemini stands for media, for mass communications. So can really shed light on the nature of mass communications, what they really get up to, who pays their bills, and who approves their narratives. Now, when you look at it from tropical, it's in Cancer, in the middle of Cancer, and Zeus, king of the gods. Another name for Zeus is Jupiter. So it's like good fortune, authority, all that stuff. The other edge of that sword of Zeus is that just outrage when anyone dares question, the person's authority. So it's like we're going to see both of these things. It's like more critical thinking about the media, but then, the media being like, how dare you? But the interesting thing, so a full moon is an opposition between sun and moon. It's when sun and moon are in opposite signs at the same degree. And that's what illuminates the full surface of the moon. So the sun that is casting that full moon unobstructed by the Earth's shadow is conjunct with the retrograde Mercury. So that's pretty neat. So that retrograde Mercury in Sagittarius. So basically, Mercury retrogrades are all about criticality and critical thinking and going back and asking questions and reviewing communication and asking, well, what was really said? And Sagittarius is spirituality and higher learning and thinking and worldviews and beliefs and the truth. There is no the truth, but people act like there is. So people are going to, it's a time to kind of be like, I want the truth. So, nothing too dramatic, but a background energy. All right. So you're getting into next day of significance, January the 12th. So the 12th into the 13th, depending on what software you're using, what system you're using, Mars retrograde ends. So this brings an energy to get the world moving forward again, because I've noticed it with different things. Just with work's been pretty good. Work's been picking up, but there was just like a little flatness to it. And a lot of people talk about that with their work and different things they're trying to accomplish. They just, they felt flat when, because Mars is you get up and go and your vitality and your will to get shit done. So Mars will stop and then start moving forward again. So that's very encouraging. Sidereally, so it stops at 14 Taurus and then 8 Gemini. So either way you slice it, that's 1 degree from the royal star Aldebaran. So Aldebaran, Eye of the Bull, the Taurus bull. Aldebaran is it's one of the cardinal stars. The 4 royal stars make a cross in the cardinal signs. And this Eye of the Bull, it deals with, the gaining of fame and wealth and power and all that stuff. But what's sewn into that energy is like you can have it, but you can't have it forever. And the more that people get fixated and obsessed, the quicker it leaves them. So it's like I always talk about it. It's like celebrities. It's like the newest band or the hot new starlet. Well, it's like, yeah, you're gonna get your year. You're gonna get maybe your couple of years. Then you're not gonna be hot anymore, because it's like a lot of these entertainers are like one-trick ponies anyway, and they don't have a lot of deep meaning. A lot of actors, musicians, artists, yeah, they convey very deep meaning. And those are the ones who, and they're clever, and they're very intuitive. They have the staying power, but the ones who are just being pushed by the machine of the studios, yeah, they don't have the staying power. They're hot 1 minute, gone the next. So yeah, Aldebaran has that energy in it, especially if you fixate on the fame and the money and the wealth and the power. If you fixate on it and you can't let it, wax and wane as it does, you're going to lose it. And if you let it go to your head, you get arrogant about it, you will lose it. So Taurus, again, sidereally, business leaders. It's all the business leaders in the world. People who control the vast majority of the wealth. Yeah, they're going to be feeling hot for a little while, but they ain't going to feel so hot for too long. So in the sidereal, the constellation Aldebaran sits in, which is where this Mars stations to go direct, it's in Pasiphae. So it's this lunar goddess, this daughter of Helios, the sun god. So this Pasiphae reflects her father's light due to this very lunar nature. So the moon is exalted in Taurus. It just loves being in Taurus. It's enjoying all the sensuality that Taurus has to offer. And, just everything that earthly life has to offer, and the friendships and the romances. So, that's a good place, though, for Mars to go direct, because it's like, yeah, let's get back to enjoying life. Tropically, 8 degrees of Gemini, that's within a constellation called Typhon. Typhon was like a kraken sea monster type being that destroys things, but destroys things for new things to come along. So Typhon, that is Ardra, the storm god. That's the Vedic lunar mansion. So yeah, it's all about the storms come to tear up things that are not working anymore, things that are not authentic. So it's like both of these things. It's like, yeah, we're going to start enjoying life more, but we're going to have to tear up old ideas, old institutions, old ways of doing things, old ideas of ourselves. That's the most important thing. You can't improve the world just by running around and, spreading awareness of whatever your cause is and making people think the way you think. You have to change yourself first. So that's the most important place to do the house cleanings and the necessary destructions. And It's all about destroying your egos and your personas that are not authentic and that don't work, that were never yours to begin with. The ones you just sort of arbitrarily adopted because they seem to work for other people, or just because you were traumatized and you developed this new idea of yourself that's not really accurate. So yeah, so that's basically that's the potentials and the energy of where Mars goes direct to go forward. Now also, with this Mars being direct, it is in a position where it's in what's called an inconjunction or a quincunx, or it's shining its eighth aspect, so 8 houses away, onto the retrograde Mercury within 3 degrees. So when it comes to like aspects, like oppositions, um, squares, all that stuff, I give it, 5 degrees the most. Within about 5 degrees. 3 degrees is really strong. 5 degrees, even a little more, you still feel it. But yeah, definitely 3 degrees, very strong. And that in conjunction is going to last until January 29th. So Mars and Mercury are going to be looking at each other in this very special way. So what is a quincunx, or an in conjunction, or an eighth aspect? So this is when two planets are either exactly 150 degrees from each other, or they're pretty damn close, within just a few degrees. So 150 degrees, it's 30 degrees shy of that 180 degree opposition, where planets look directly at each other. So it's 30 degrees off. So this means that, they can't communicate. They're just off enough to where they're actually in the worst possible communication. So, sidereally, Mars being in Taurus and then Mercury being in Sagittarius. Tropically, Mars being in Gemini and Mercury being in Capricorn. So yeah, so they're at this weird 150 degree angle to each other. So this means that they're not communicating. So this means that Mercury, our intellect, and then Mars, like our willpower and our vitality and our get up and go, and even our anger and our outrage, they're not communicating with each other. So basically, Mercury on this day, it's still in retrograde and it's still going back and taking, the second look, doing the review. Mars is moving direct and wants to get shit done, but it's not going to be well informed by the intellect. So this is just when people are just acting stupid and they're like tired children. It's like with the U.S. House of Representatives. They had to vote 14 times on the damn Speaker of the House because they couldn't come to an agreement about that. And, really, it's like, I think I don't take sides in politics, but really what it comes down to is it's like, on the Democratic side, since the Republicans control the House now, they get the, Speaker of the House comes from their party because they're the majority party. Basically, on the Democrat side, on the side of the left, it's like, well, none of the Republicans have enough rainbow flags and BLM flags, so it's like they're having a shit fit, and they're just basically in denial, that they're not in control anymore. So they just want to raise a bunch of fucking hell. Now the Republicans are despicable too, but people are just sore losers, no matter who the loser is. So yeah, it's just this anger that has no common sense is what it comes down to. So yeah. Now another thing with Mars too is that Mars is out of bounds. Now I haven't heard a lot of people talking about this, Mars being out of bounds. What the hell is out of bounds? So the Earth has its axis is 23 degrees off. So basically, instead of the sun just traveling directly over the equator, it moves within this 23-degree range. So basically, that 23 degrees above or below the basically the celestial equator. So the Earth's equator. So if you have the celestial equator right here, Earth's equator points down. But then it's like also up on the other side. So the Earth's axis, it's not square to the celestial equator. It's like 23 degrees off. So the sun travels within this 23-degree band, on either side of the celestial equator. That's the kingdom of the sun. Most of the time, the planets are traveling within that range. But what will happen now and then, planet goes out of bounds. Planet goes beyond the borders of the kingdom of the sun. And the sun is, it's like the king and queen at the same time of the solar system, because the exterior of the sun is very masculine. It's that bright light. Then the interior, it's a giant fusion reactor. So it's very yin. So you can look at the sun. You can look at any planet really both ways, because they all have north and south poles. They have a masculine and a feminine pole. So anyway, the sun is like, it's the ruler of the solar system. So when planets travel within that band, they're more inclined to behave themselves. When they're outside that, they're just more unpredictable, because they're outside of the sun's kingdom, and there's no law enforcement outside the kingdom. You're out in the wild, right? So yeah, Mars can be definitely just wackier than usual. It can do more surprising things. So with Mars and Mercury looking at each other like this, not a great time to travel. We already saw airliners like 10 years ago that were accidentally shot down over Ukraine. Things like that could happen. I don't want to be right about that. I don't want to see that, but could happen. Could be little dramas in the financial markets. Nothing major at this point. So yeah. That Mercury retrograde, sidereally, since it's in Sagittarius, it's in a lunar mansion called Ceto, so the mother of the Gorgons and the sea monsters. So bringing things to our attention, from the deep. And then 8 degrees Capricorn, where it's tropically, that's Natura, so the goddess of nature. So nature is an amazing healing machine. And, nature is the expression, is the physical expression of, the divine order in the cosmos. All right, so then you come forward a little bit. You get to January 17th. Now, this in conjunction, this 150-degree aspect that I've been going on about between Mars and Mercury, it's at the perfect 150-degree in conjunction, aka quincunx. So, yeah, people just really getting wild and stirred up and angry and having no common sense. So, that's just the way it goes sometimes. We've seen a lot of this, even without this aspect. But something a little extra dramatic could happen, but it's not the end of the world. And then, let's see. On that, on that same day, January the 17th, Saturn comes into Aquarius. It's in the lunar mansion of the Muses. So the Muses inspire writing and poetry and music and art of all types. So, this can deal with expression. Saturn is helping we the people express ourselves. Tropically, like I said, 24 degrees of Aquarius. Still, it's been in Aquarius tropically. Chimera. It's the three-headed monster that Theseus fights in the Greek mythology. Chimera deals with making a difference in the world. So you're going to see people, we the people, Aquarius, starting to be like, okay, I've got to do something for myself here. Instead of freaking out about what's going on in the news, I just have to make changes to my life. All right, next day, 18th of January, Mercury retrograde ends at 13 degrees of Sagittarius. Still in that lunar mansion of Ceto or Natura, tropically. January the 21st. That is going to be a new moon in Capricorn, sidereally, 7 degrees Capricorn in Natura. And then 1 degree Aquarius tropical in the Muses. So, last few months has been a lot of action with Natura and the Muses. So, new moons, definitely it's like a portal. It's a new monthly cycle. It's also a new yearly cycle because you only get a new moon in this Capricorn or Aquarius once a year. So it is it's a smaller yearly cycle in a way. And we only go through this particular portal once a year. So they're portals to look at things differently, to do new things, to realize new things. So, Natura, it's like in new moons too, they're like conceptions. So, conception takes place in the dark of the womb, and the womb's a portal. So, Natura, it's natural law. It's being responsible with the natural world. It is, knowing the natural law and following it. Natural law is Saturn's law. And again, Saturn is home in Capricorn. So, and it's where you're made to follow the law. So we started thinking about that. How do we make our lives more natural and more sensible, more common sense? And then, you look at it tropically, it's the Muses. It's like people talking about, okay, how do we, since that's in Aquarius, it's like, okay, how do we make this whole world better for everybody? By helping ourselves and being examples. And then too, still on this 21st, you've got, again, that Mercury and that Mars still looking at each other, from about 150 degrees, give or take. People still getting all fucking stirred up, but not having their common sense to inform them. So, yeah, it's just like misled, kind of rudderless outrage. And then the 22nd, last day of significance, but definitely a big one. So January the 22nd, this is when Uranus will station. It'll end its retrograde. It'll stop moving and then get ready to go direct, to move forward from our perspective. So Uranus will station and move direct, sidereally 20 degrees of Hades, the lunar mansion Hades, which is in Aries, and then tropically 14 Aldebaran. 14 Taurus, which is right next to Aldebaran, a degree away. Lunar mansion of Pasiphae. So, Hades deals with just all of the deep unconscious stuff that we don't want to deal with, because Hades is the god of the underworld. And Hades may just be a masculine form for Persephone, goddess of the underworld. It's a lot like Hel, the Germanic goddess of the underworld. So, there's that aspect to it where we just have to deal with reality that we've been putting off dealing with. And then Pasiphae in the tropical, it's that lunar goddess that wants to, enjoy the sensual physical world and every benefit that comes with it. But it's near Aldebaran, which tells you, well, you can have this, but don't get obsessed because it'll get taken away from you. Uranus is a big disruptor. That's what Uranus does. Uranus is the rebellion that breaks us out of the uniform hive mind conformity that Saturn can bring. It's where we start asking questions. It's like, has there really only been one human in human history who was really a god and more perfect than the rest of us? Did he really walk on water? Did he really feed 5,000 people with a loaf of bread? You start asking these questions. Do I have to live my life exactly like my parents? Do I have to do everything, my family and friends told me I should be doing in my life? You start asking these questions in Uranus. But then you have to progress, you progress to Neptune, where you find this divine, universal, unconditional love and all this intuition and all this spiritual insight. And then you still have to keep progressing to Pluto, which is your soul's journey and soul's evolution. If you get stuck at, Uranus or Neptune, you get stuck and things kind of go sideways. And you never self-actualize. You never really become yourself. You never get to your potential. I'm not talking about, you'll never earn your potential and your 6 figures and millions. I'm not talking about that. When I say your potential, it's about being the real you and being able to feel content about that. So Uranus, again, it's that initial rebellion that breaks you out of Saturn's conformity. Because Saturn is the last visible planet. When you take the world and the universe at face value, Saturn being the last visible planet, it's symbolic that, well, I don't believe it unless I see it. If you can't show me the numbers, it's just not real. Because scientists would know about it if it was real. Or my pastor would know about it if it was real. If it was real, it'd be in the Bible. It's all the same shit, right? So Uranus is that initial rebellion that says, you know what? I think there is something beyond this visible world. I don't think my parents know everything. I think they're good people. They've done a lot for me and they meant well, but I don't think they know everything. I think they're human and they have stuff that they're stuck on. They have their own issues. It's where you start having this realization and you're like, you know what? I'm going to be me. And when you first start being you, when you have your awakening and you first start being you act like a weirdo. You go overboard. People think you're eating weird stuff and wearing weird things and you're thinking weird thoughts and, that's just part of it. You have to get past that. If you don't get past it, you're like one of these people that was at Woodstock in 1969 and, you still wake and bake. You've been smoking a shitload of weed for 50 years and, eating way too many mushrooms, dropping way too much acid, and it's like, you think being weird and doing drugs like changes the world somehow. And you don't realize that your rebellion was hijacked by very cleverly diabolical people in intelligence services running psyops. It's actually your whole rebellion was a psyop. If you get stuck in rebellion, you never realize things like this. But anyway, I'm really digressing. Uranus is a disruptor, and disruptions are often needed. So the point of me bringing this up, and this is my last major point, Uranus is at the same degree that it was at on January 22nd, 1939. On January 22nd, 1939, Uranus came out of retrograde at 20 degrees Aries sidereal, 14 degrees Taurus tropical. So this was the second to last, let me get my numbers straight here. This was the second to last retrograde before World War II started. Yes, second to last. World War II officially started September 1st, 1939, when the Third Reich invaded Gdansk, Poland, or otherwise known as Danzig, was its German name. It was a port city in Poland on the Baltic Sea on the border with Germany. So that was when the invasion of Poland kicked off. It was September 1st, 1939. That's when World War II started. 3 days before that, August the 28th, what was that? 4 days. Uranus went retrograde sidereally, 28 degrees Aries. So it started this Uranus retrograde World War II started in a matter of 4 days. So this Uranus and the cycle of Uranus, this 84-year cycle of Uranus, it had a lot to do with being the driving energy of World War II. So when you look at World War II from the sidereal perspective, from the Aries perspective, because it was in this retrograde in the later degrees of Aries, it was Aries has to do with leadership. It's all about, basically like, reforming the world's leadership and, redetermining, what that is. So, yeah, it was all about new people wanting to control the world. So basically, really what you had in World War II, you had a group of extremely wealthy people. It was basically an alliance between the Prussian, not the Russian, but the Prussian aristocrats. The Prussians, it's a group from northwestern Germany. They started out as the Teutonic Knights, who were a group of knights that the Pope sent into Germany and Poland and, the Baltic states in order to crush the pagans and spread Catholicism. And in return, they were given land and wealth and all this stuff. So the Teutonic Knights, their descendants became the Prussians. And the Prussians, by 1700, became the dominant state within modern Germany. And they eventually spread across northern Germany. So their domain spread across northern Germany. They had alliances with the aristocrats in Hanover, the Hanoverians, and the Hessians. And so their royal family eventually, they married into the British royals. And so by World War I, all the royal families, so we're talking Germany, England, Russia, they're all related to Queen Victoria, who's from this Prussian aristocratic dynasty. So these Prussian aristocrats who wanted to, and they were the ones who united Germany. We have this modern concept of Germany because in the 1870s, the Prussians compelled the other regions of Germany to join them. Germany used to be like 100 plus different kingdoms and principalities, and, Germany is a very modern concept, just like Italy, Spain, France. It's all very new. When you create these mega states like they are, you can have a central bank. You can get more people stuck with a national debt. That's what all these unifications in the 1800s, like Germany and Italy, were all about. So there's always a bank driving politics and, driving philosophy too, because, they own the publishing houses. So these Prussian aristocrats, coming out of, Northeast Germany, they made an alliance with Wall Street, with the London banks, and, with the likes of the British royals, with think tanks like the Fabian Society. They wanted to bring about a whole new order in a whole new type of leadership within the world, and they wanted to have basically scientific tyranny. You had science fiction writers like H.G. Wells who were actually setting the expectations for the future for humanity, and they were setting the expectation of a totalitarian scientific tyranny. This is like in the Time Machine, where you just have the humans who are just like cattle and they're food for the weird, hairy, kind of like, beast people who like regressed. I can't remember their names, but you had this very docile, frightened majority population ruled by a minority of predators. Even in his stories, basically in the future societies, people would have to go before a panel of government bureaucrats to basically justify their existence on Earth to these civil servants. So it was really warped shit that these wealthy people in Britain, America, and then Prussia, northeastern Germany, got together and they said, we want a new order. And they had Confederates in Italy, and really probably the parent banks to all these central banks they're definitely in Switzerland. There's probably a lot in northern Italy too. Not going to get into that right now. And then they had Confederates in Japan too, who were like, yeah, that sounds good. These financial interests behind the Japanese Empire. So it was about a new type of leadership and a new order, literally. Oh shit, I probably shouldn't say that. Looking for that one. A new order for the world. And then, tropically, being 1 degree, Uranus stationing in January 1939, 1 degree from Aldebaran. It was about a new economic order, because economics always drives systems of governments without exception. No matter how cute, caring, progressive, or liberal they are, they're all funded by a bank. They're all driven by a bank and by business leaders. So very telling. But I think Uranus, especially in the tropical, stationing so close to Pasiphae, which means, well, you can have all this wealth for a little while, but not forever. It was doomed from the get-go. And I think ever since this time, you've had these financial interests that created all these socialist movements like the Soviet Union and Nazism, the National Socialism, and all that fun stuff. They have been the principals, the investors behind them. They've been running the world since 1939, because the Nazis were never defeated. When you look at the document, the instrument of surrender, the treaty that ended World War II, it was never signed by the Nazi Party or the SS or any Nazi leaders. It was signed by the head of the German military and government. So Germany was destroyed and defeated. But the Nazis came to America. They came to Britain, South America, possibly Antarctica, but definitely to America. And they've been running the show ever since. The European Union, that's the new German Empire. These German Prussian aristocrats, they were behind the European Central Bank. The likes of Klaus Schwab, he's one of them. So they've been running the world. They started this rebellion in 1939, and they're coming full circle. So yeah, they're going to make a mess, but they're going to lose. So yeah, so we are in January 1939. So time is circular, but it moves forward, so it's a spiral. So we're back to it. Looks a little different, but it's very much the same. All right, so this year, I'll give you a sneak peek. August the 28th, 2023, just like August the 28th, 1939, Uranus will go into retrograde again at 28 degrees of Aries, sidereally. So what does that come to tropically? What is that, 24, 2 degrees, 26, yeah. No, excuse me, 22 Taurus. So it's going to retrograde through the same degrees it did in 1939. So both years, 1939, 2023, Uranus retrograde, same degree of either Aries or Taurus as it was in 1939. So within a matter of days, we're going to know that World War III is going. But, like I'm always saying, it's not the World War II style bloodbath. It's going to be different. This is more in the mind. Militaries will still be moving around. There'll still be some military drama going on. But a very different kind of a war, much quieter war. Really, the militaries will just be being used to frighten people. It's more like, if you don't do what your government says, then, nukes could fly. It's that kind of bullshit. But and World War II has been rolling for the last 3 years. since the start of the cooties crisis in the needlecraft. It's like, before World War II, you had Japan invading different parts, Japanese Empire invading different parts of China. There was aggression going on, but 1939, September 1st, it was like, yes, this is happening. So by September of this year, it's like, yes, something will be happening when Uranus does that the retrograde for this year, which is the exact same retrograde date and degrees that it did in 1939, 4 days before World War II kicked off. Now, in this year, with January 22nd having this identical Uranus stationing and moving direct as it did in January 22nd, 1939, we have Saturn and Venus conjunct at 0 Aquarius. So this means different things to me. So Venus, mythologically, daughter of Saturn. They get along very well. Venus is all about, it's like diplomacy, romance, sensuality. It's all the material comforts of life and enjoying those. So, on one surface interpretation, you can be like, well, Saturn is, going to restrict our enjoyment of these things. And it's like, well, there's a little something to that, but I don't think the developments, of like restriction being imposed will be anything new. I think like these powers that be will try to enforce things a little harder that have already been happening. They're like, well, you need to put your double mask back on, or they'll be blustering, talking about maybe some lockdowns. Because we're in the cold flu season now in the Northern Hemisphere. But yeah, I don't see any dramatic things coming. I think what this is more about is that Saturn and Venus are basically, it's almost like a blessing. They're going to be like, you can have, your friendships, your good times, your physical comforts, your resources. You can have all that stuff if you have the right mindset, which is basically like aligned with natural law. So that's what I see out of that. So that is a huge obstacle for these Klaus Schwab, globalist control freaks that want to take everything over and regiment everybody's lives and tell them how to live them. That's a slap in the face for them. Because it's like, yeah, they do represent Capricorn, but at the same time, again, these people are like, they're either entitled aristocrats or they're self-appointed aristocrats. Or functionally, they're aristocrats. They own enough of a particular market, they control enough of a particular market to basically attempt to force their desires on people. So, but yeah, this I think is a sign of their doom. And that brings me back to that earthquake. If we get an earthquake sometime this year with all these movements of these placements of Saturn and Jupiter and Pluto, that earthquake will be an augury. So an augury is all about reading the signs of nature and knowing what the divine matrix is telling you through the natural world, what it's signaling. So especially if it's a well-placed earthquake, say in Silicon Valley, that's nice and disrupting, that'll be a sign of their downfall. So I don't want anyone to get hurt, but I do want to see those bastards very well disrupted. So yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for tuning in, and if you have not had a reading with me, I highly recommend you get one. Great way to take a different look at yourself and your life and set your course for this year. It's a very practical, usable tool, the way I do it. I custom build you a meditation and give you a mantra and a mandala to use along with your mantra. And it's all about basically getting your unconscious mind, your built-in manifester, back online. And working for you rather than creating chaos. There's enough chaos already in each of our lives and in the world. So anyway, that's it. I'll be seeing more of you later. Have a good one.